Alright, the very next thing I'm going to focus on is this back portion. So this sort of quarter circle, sort of a half hemisphere. So to do that, I'm going to make a new layer. I'll call this wing back, and I will increase the resolution like I did last time. And I'll bust out the primitives tool again, only this time instead of using a cube, I'm going to use an ellipsoid. So there we go, I hit enter on that, and now I've got this big blob on top of my wing. So to get rid of that, I'll use my cutoff tool, and I'm going to cut off and then for the rest of the cutoff, you can see if I bring up the opacity a little bit, you can see this kind of line that goes diagonally across our wing center. So I'm going to use the cutoff tool along that. Yeah, by the way, if you hold down shift while using this, it'll lock the line you're drawing to increments of 45 degrees. So if you got to go straight up and down or straight across, holding down shift will make that a lot easier. So I've got this. Looks like it could probably be a little bit flatter on top, and then maybe a little bit taller overall. So it's going to be a little bit of a tricky use of the pose tool, but here we go. Looking at it from the front, that was 5 to go to orthographic and then 2 to look at it from the front. I'll grab my pose tool. Actually, for this one, let's see what happens. Yep, grabbing it, and then I will scale it down so it's a little bit flatter. And then on my wing center, I'm going to grab my cutoff tool and cut some angles in here. And then I think I just need to make sure that this lines up perfectly. So look at it from the top. Just move it down ever so slightly. So now let's focus on the other major parts of this particular wing. So that would be these two bits in the center. And I'm going to use a very similar technique to what I've already done with the 2 back portions. So I'm going to speed this part of the video up. You should hopefully still be able to tell what I'm doing. Again, if I ever introduce a new technique, I'll make sure I explain it. Alright, so we've got the basic form of the wing down. If I look at the distance between the back and front of the fuselage, this is a pretty decent size. Okay, so now that we've got these very basic forms in, now we can start worrying about some of the finer details. But before we do that, there was something I wanted to do with these fins that wanted to show you guys. We're also not really going to be needing the reference image anymore after this, because just about all that's left is medium and small size details, which my particular reference is not going to help us a whole lot with. So bearing that in mind, here's what I wanted to show you. So with these 2 fins right here, I want them to do 2 things. I want them to taper off to a point, but I also want them both to be angled downwards on each side. Now the pose tool can help with this quite a lot, but there's a problem. We can't see it, but these are actually this is just one object. If I hide the wing center and front, you'll see these fins are actually one object. Now we can rotate things using the pose tool, but by just clicking on it. But if we do that, it'll select the entire object. We want to be able to select each fin individually. So we have two options. We can either cut these apart in the middle so that they're one voxel layer, but they are two different shells, or we can use a new tool. So I'll clear the selection here. So I want to split this right down the middle into two separate voxel objects. So there happens to be a tool called Split. So I'll use Split, and I'll just use a basic rectangular marquee. And if I grab one half of this, you'll see it gets split into another object as a child of the first object. Now I don't want the copy to be a child of the main one. So I'll right click on it, change parent, and I'll change the parent to the root, which will put it at the same level as everything else. We'll parent these properly towards the end once we have all of our different pieces made. But for right now, we want everything to be underneath the root. So I'll rename this. This one looks like it's the right fin. And this one looks like it's the left fin. Okay. Now I'm just going to use the exact same technique that I used on our fuselage coupling right here. Now they're tapered properly, but I want them still to be angled downwards. So now I can grab each particular fin and I can use the transform tool and just tilt it downwards ever so slightly. And as you see, if I move it up so it's more in the middle, the other side starts poking out a little bit. So I can use my cutoff tool again. Now let's move on to something a little bit different.